Everyone knows that one kid who thinks that if they led Germany, they could have won World War II. Maybe that someone is you. But I think that everybody would recognize the infamous Twitter post which inspired a meme. Some guy on Twitter listed a bunch of things that he would tell Hitler to do in order to win World War II. This post definitely deserved the ridicule it got. But after PAX Historia approached me for a sponsored video, I had a very silly idea. What if Hitler, after a concussion from falling down the stairs, received this Twitter post and followed it to the letter? My first turn had me word for word copying down the Twitter post in its context. While Hitler could not have understood what a website is, the context of the post being that Hitler could have won World War II if he did this, is enough for him to radically shift his direction. After I submitted the request, the AI had looked at my submission with immense skepticism, but ran with it anyway. It directed the Germans to attempt to make a defensive pact with Poland, and they even sent a telegram to Mussolini. The Berlin-Rome telegram. Adolf Hitler personally contacted Benito Mussolini regarding the ongoing Second Italo-Ethiopian War. The fact that this telegram existed at all inspired me to reach out to them directly, and it didn't go very well.
It is clear that your new orientation has blinded you to the realities of Mediterranean security and the dignity of our Roman ambitions. If the Reich chooses to prioritize Slavic sentimentality over a proven fascist partnership, then Italy shall proceed with its own destiny regardless of your disapproval. We find this abrupt termination of dialogue as disrespectful as your visions. And we shall remember this lack of solidarity when the winds of war eventually sweep across the continent.
So it may sound pretty bad that we didn't manage to ally with Italy, but I have some logic behind how this is actually a better outcome to fulfill the requests that this Twitter user had. It's kind of cope, but hear me out. Now, the spirit of this Twitter's user's post is that they're telling Mussolini to spontaneously fix his command structure and tactics to just not lose. But if Hitler had this revelation before Italy and Germany had founded the Axis, and considering the fact that they had the wisdom of ignoring Africa, implying that the Germans were fighting there and that front should be ignored, the best way to avoid it is to not be aligned with Italy at all. And if we have to choose between allying Italy or the Slavs, like they say in their post, it's actually a better thing for us to be allying with Yugoslavia. So I reached out to them in order to try to find a way for us to be friends. They accepted a guarantee of independence in exchange for us supporting their industrial development. But by this point, we reached a problem, and Lord Dad that's playing the game will be able to tell you better than me. Italy, up in even before this point of like the Germans Anschluss in Austria, Italy wanted Austria to be a buffer state between themselves and Germany. We weren't just going to get Anschluss for free. If we do, that'll be really concerning. So that's the problem right now, right? Like if we try to send shipments to Yugoslavia and then Italy goes to war with us, we'll be blocked by Austria. And if we try to invade Austria, we'll be going through mountains. Italy will block these shipments to Yugoslavia, ally with Bulgaria, and then Yugoslavia will just be screwed, right? So we need to find a way to get to Yugoslavia. So we can try to get Austria, and that's what I'll be doing as a diplomatic action. Following positive developments in diplomacy with Yugoslavia and negative developments from Italian cooperation in Germany's new strategic vision, the Germans seek to find a way to support pro-annexation groups within Austria to achieve Anschluss and connect the Yugoslavs against the Italian menace. Okay, so we're going to do that, but then here's another thing too. So Germany's disdain for France would be obvious, right? But we're ignoring Africa. We're trying to fight the Soviets. We should try to see what France's opinion on Yugoslavia and Italy is. Because if we're able to isolate Italy, then we could go into Austria, get France's support of the Anschluss of Austria, then potentially even carve up Italy between ourselves. Yugoslavia gets these claimed territories. We get Northern Tyrol, maybe a puppet state in Italy, who knows? And then we could go from there. So I want to start talking to France too. So I tried my best to reason with France and highlight the fact that if I was able to get Austria, then I would be able to uphold the Little Entente's security. But then they started coming at me and being like, oh, well, what about the Stresa front? That's supposed to be the way that Austria is independent, and it's a cornerstone of European stability, and you need to just blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, well, like, what's the problem here? Like, you have two different treaties that basically conflict with each other, but they still stand firm and they're just not willing to negotiate. So I do this action where I publicly denounce the Stresa Front as an unreasonable treaty that only isolates Yugoslavia and other members of the Little Entente to the whims of Italian expansionism, while also throwing in a little, if Germany annexed Austria, this would all be prevented, to get more people on my side. I open up talks to the Little Entente to do my best to sway them away from France's sphere of influence to mine. After a long debate between the members of the Little Entente, Yugoslavia mentions that you just make a treaty where we're allowed to move troops within their borders to reach Yugoslavia if Yugoslavia is declared on by Italy. So we accept this Yugoslavian idea, but we use it for our own purposes. And Gaming Lord Dad will explain. So we're not actually going to buy this. So look, this is my plan. We're gonna get military access with Austria, but then when we have military access, we can just sue the government, right? Let's just do that. So despite my less than honest intentions, I open up a dialogue with Austria. They eventually bend and be like, okay, we'll let you move troops within our borders, but it has to be against Italian aggression and respect the government in Vienna. So after reaching a sort of agreement with Austria, I could finally submit my second turn and start seeing what happens next.
Schuschnigg's dilemma. The Vienna Transit Agreement. Austrian Chancellor Kurt von Schuschnigg, feeling the pressure from both the German Reich and internal pro-unification groups, has finalized the Military Transit Accord. This agreement allows German motorized units to utilize specific rail and road corridors toward the Yugoslav border. While intended to deter Italy, the move has sparked mass demonstrations in Vienna by both pro-Anschluss Nazis and anti-fascist workers, further destabilizing the Austrian state.
Yeah, boy, let's go. Okay, this is exactly what we wanted. So from here, the game went on to explain that my public denunciation of the Stresa Front is helping me move towards becoming a protector of order rather than a revisionist expansionist power, which you'll see how that manifests later on. But the thing that I think is really interesting is check out the way that Italy was responding to the fact that I wanted to go through Austria, even just to move troops.
Italian military observers report that the German presence in Austria, even for transit, is a de facto occupation of the diplomatic sphere. Italy will not be dictated to by those who confuse divine visions with the realities of Mediterranean power. Benito Mussolini.
They're talking shit, and they remembered too what I'm saying. This is really impressive, honestly. So as the game started to process my actions, it started to talk about how the Little Entente was divided about going towards me. Romania and Yugoslavia were interested, but Czechoslovakia was terrified of German encirclement. This incident prompted France to start an emergency conference in order to try to get them back into their sphere of influence. But something really big is about to happen that will change the way that the game is going so far. Uh-oh. Oh. Woo! Yeah! What's going on here? Okay. What's going on?
The Austro-German border incident. A paramilitary clash at the Austro-German border between pro-Anschluss demonstrators and Austrian police has resulted in several casualties. The German Reich has used this as a pretext to safeguard the transit corridors.
So not only did we just occupy a major region of Austria and further isolate it from other powers, but we also remilitarized the Rhineland. This is a pretty dramatic crisis that I had to try to figure out right away, because if I took the wrong actions, Italy and France would be invading me when I haven't had time to properly mobilize a new army. So how did Gamer Lordad deal with this problem? The German Reich must decide, will you order the Wehrmacht to cross the border and complete the Anschluss, or will you respect the transit agreements and risk an Italian intervention in Vienna? Yeah, we're going to call Italy's bluff. They're currently at war with Ethiopia, and we are going to find a way to get Yugoslavia in on this. But maybe we'll only... hold on, what is this? After noticing this diplomatic chat, which included Austria, Yugoslavia, and Italy, Austria was asking me what my intentions were. Remembering what France was telling me about respecting international law, I tried to make this as legal as possible by having a plebiscite. Austria said that if I told the Nazi paramilitaries to stop their actions, they would hold the plebiscite so long as we didn't invade them during it. I agreed to this, but Italy was very upset.
Do not mistake our silence for consent, as Italy will not stand by while the borders of Central Europe are rewritten through the theater of a forced plebiscite. Your blatant disregard for the Stresa Front and the sovereignty of Vienna is an insult to the Roman spirit and our stabilizing influence in the Mediterranean. If the German Reich attempts to finalize this annexation under the guise of popular will, we will find it necessary to protect our own security interests at the Brenner Pass and throughout the Adriatic by any means required.
So Italy once again mentions the Stresa Front, which is Britain, France, and Italy guaranteeing Austria against German aggression. So I thought it was really important for me to reach out to France. Our last interaction had them saying that we need to respect international law in order to properly do these things, and I point out that that's exactly what I'm doing. I had the option to pursue answers through violence, but instead I tried to get military access by respecting their sovereignty. I had no idea what had caused a civil war, but now I'm being blamed for that, and I'm being told to get out of the Rhine when Italy's threatening me, and if France decides to interpret my actions in Austria as an attack on Austria, they would just invade the Rhineland. And I point out that I just can't let that happen. And I keep trying to point to all the things that Italy's doing wrong, like they're invading Ethiopia, they're not giving up their claims on Yugoslavia, and France is still just like, oh, obey the treaties, and that was the final straw. I used this hypocrisy of the French to take the little Entente and bring them into my sphere of influence.
My brothers, I've done my best to prevent a crisis in Europe, but the current hostilities in Austria have forced my hand. I've done my best to prevent further bloodshed and ensure that the conflict resolves peacefully. However, I am still being seen with skepticism. Italy will be attacking us in response to us merely attempting to resolve the Austrian conflict peacefully, and France is backing Italy rather than denying it. France's true objectives have been revealed. They only seek to use the Little Entente to benefit them. They will allow for Italian expansion if it benefits them, just like their weak countermeasures against Italian attacks in Ethiopia. I seek to establish an alliance with the Little Entente. While we may need to rebrand following that it will not be so little, and erase the association with the false guarantors of France by replacing the word Entente, I hope that this alliance may be a fruitful endeavor for our peoples against the Italo-French aggression.
After this grand announcement, Romania and Yugoslavia agreed to abandon the Little Entente in favor of an alliance with Germany. While Czechoslovakia was far more concerned, the fact that their former allies are now going to me means that Czechoslovakia has little choice but to join the alliance. With the Little Entente secured, I have a lot more friends on our side, but there's still the problem of Poland potentially joining up with France and taking the opportunity to expand against us. While our actions have increased our friendliness towards each other, I still had to make sure that we weren't going to fight. So I managed to get an agreement where I guaranteed Poland's eastern border against the Soviet Union, and the Polish agreed not to attack me while this situation's going on in Western Europe. And after that, it was really easy. Austria fell in a plebiscite and joined Germany. France didn't get a casus belli to handle the situation. I used my turn to instigate a border conflict with Italy so that their threats of invading us were actually just legitimate. I also quickly grabbed up Hungary because 1, they were allies with Italy, and 2, I needed some Lebensraum. Like, come on. Yugoslavia and I then divided up Italy. I claimed the former Austrian territories of Milan and Venice. The rest of Italy was turned into a puppet government, with the former government being approved by Britain. And while this all was happening, there was significant rest in the Soviet Union. I managed to make a deal with Poland where if they give me Danzig, I'll let them have Lithuania, as long as we claim Estonia and Latvia. After conquering these regions, we had a clear shot to Leningrad, so I ordered a direct attack on Leningrad and Stalingrad. And despite how heavily fortified Leningrad would have been, for whatever reason it just fell immediately, and France didn't do anything this whole time until I mentioned to Japan that France could be a threat. France remembered that it's a threat, started to threaten me, but there's no Red Army anymore, it's just little pockets of resistance. So I turned back, I conquered France, and then the last thing I did is I went up to Britain and be like, hey, if you remove the guarantees off of the Benelux, I'll let you have all of the colonies of France, the Netherlands, and Belgium. And they're like, okay, sure. After I got a telegram from the Spanish Republic asking for assistance in stabilizing their state, I just straight up invaded them, invaded Portugal, set up an RK Iberia. The border regions of France and Germany were given to RK Burgundy, RK Netherlands was established, set up a Reichsprotectorate in France, and the last turn has Britain basically being like, can we please define what is going on here so you don't invade us? And I felt like at that point it was a good enough time to stop playing the game. I could probably go in and attack Britain or actually turn around and properly put down the Slavs, because while this Twitter post is really wrong for a lot of reasons, one of the reasons that it's such a problem is that it denies the fact that Hitler wanted to enslave the Slavs when it was literally in Mein Kampf. And I thought there would be some more pushback, but AI is generally meant to always do whatever you say. And the fact that I prompted it with Hitler will win World War II if he does these specific things, and then I did those specific things. No wonder it was so easy for me, right? I think that the next time I play this, I do something like play as one nation for one cycle, but then switch which nation you're playing, because you can actually do that. And then I could make problems for myself and then have to do diplomacy against myself and make the whole thing more dynamic. And I heard that they've also added multiplayer. I think that the pricing here is really fair too. I had one token and I used up just one token with all the actions I took. This has been a really fun time, and I'm really grateful to be sponsored by PAX Historia. If you want to check out their product, please check the link in the description. It supports my channel. I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, let me know if you guys want to see more PAX Historia content, because this was pretty fun and I wouldn't mind doing it again. Well, it's your Lord Dad. Shout out to my channel members and Patreon members who technically do not exist yet, but it's there if you're interested. Stay safe, don't take candy from strangers, and I hope you have a good day.